A 5-minute reset for a tired mind. You don't need motivation, you need rest inside your mind. This is not a productivity book. It's a recovery guide. For the part of you that's exhausted, not physically, mentally, the part that's been running nonstop. Processing, planning, worrying, analyzing, managing. Without a break, without relief, without any real rest, and now it's tired. Not in a way that sleep fixes, but in a way that only stopping can address. Real stopping, mental stopping. The kind where your mind actually gets to rest. Not think about resting, not plan for resting, but actually rest. And that's what these 5 resets are for. Not to make you more productive, not to optimize your performance, not to help you do more, but to help you stop for just 5 minutes in a way that actually works, in a way that actually gives your mind what it's been desperately needing. A break, a real one. Stay here, even if your mind is already telling you this is a waste of time. Even if you think you don't have 5 minutes, even if you believe nothing this simple could possibly help. Stay, because your mind is tired, and tired minds need something different than what you've been giving them. They need this. Introduction. Why mental fatigue feels invisible. Mental fatigue doesn't show. You can't see it. You can't measure it. You can't point to it and say there. That's the problem. It's invisible, which makes it easy to ignore, easy to dismiss, easy to push through. You look fine, you sound fine. You're still functioning, still working, still showing up, so everyone assumes you're okay. And maybe you assume it too, until you notice that thinking takes longer than it used to. That decisions feel harder, that focusing requires effort you don't have, that your mind feels foggy, slow, heavy, like it's moving through mud. This is mental fatigue, and it's different from physical tiredness. Physical tiredness is obvious. Your body aches, your muscles are sore, you feel the need to lie down. Mental fatigue is subtler. You can still move. You can still do things. But your mind is exhausted from constant input, constant decisions, constant processing, constant noise, and unlike physical fatigue, mental fatigue doesn't respond to a good night's sleep. Because it's not about how much you slept. It's about how much your mind has been working. Even when you think it's resting, even when you think you're relaxing, even when you're lying in bed, your mind is still going. Still processing the day, still planning tomorrow, still worrying about what you forgot, still replaying conversations, still searching for problems to solve. It never stops, and that's why it's tired. Not because you're weak. Not because you can't handle life, but because you never actually let it rest. You've been feeding it constantly. Information, stimulation, decisions, tasks, content, notifications, thoughts, worries, without pause, without space, without silence, and now it's full. Overloaded, exhausted, not from one thing, but from everything all at once, all the time, and the exhaustion is invisible, which means it's easy to miss. Easy to minimize, easy to tell yourself I'm fine. I'm just tired, but you're not just tired. Your mind is depleted, and depletion requires something specific. Not more input, not more stimulation, not more trying. But less, much less, space, silence, emptiness. The kind your mind has been craving but never getting. And that's what these 5 resets give you. Not more to do, but less, a way to actually stop, to actually rest, to actually give your mind what it's been needing. For just 5 minutes, that's all. 5 minutes where you're not consuming, not processing, not managing, not doing, just being, and letting your mind finally, truly rest. Reset 1. Stop consuming. Your mind is tired because it never stops taking in. Think about everything you've consumed today. Not just food, information, messages, emails, news, social media, articles, videos, podcasts, conversations, thoughts, notifications, opinions, updates, problems, other people's emotions, all of it, pouring into your mind constantly, without pause, and your mind has been trying to process it all, to make sense of it, to sort it, to respond to it, to remember it, to decide what to do with it. And it's exhausting because there's no end. As soon as you finish processing one thing, 3 more arrive. As soon as you clear one notification, 5 more appear. As soon as you answer one question, 10 more emerge. Your mind is in a constant state of intake, and it's drowning, not because any single piece of information is too much, but because the volume is relentless, and your mind never gets a break from receiving. So the first reset is simple. Stop consuming. For 5 minutes, stop taking anything new in. No phone, no screen, no reading, no listening, no scrolling, no checking, no input of any kind. Just stop and let your mind finally have a moment where nothing new is being added, where it doesn't have to process, where it doesn't have to respond, where it can just be without intake. This feels uncomfortable at first. Your mind will resist. It will tell you to check something, to read something, to look at something, because it's used to constant input. It's used to being fed. It's used to having something to do. And emptiness feels wrong, like you're missing something, like you should be doing something. But you're not missing anything. You're giving your mind what it actually needs. A break from consumption, a break from intake, a break from the relentless stream of information. And when you do that, when you actually stop consuming for even 5 minutes, your mind starts to settle. The noise begins to quiet. The pressure begins to ease, not because you solved anything, but because you stopped adding to it. You stopped feeding the overload and gave your mind space. Real space, empty space, the kind it's been desperately needing. So for the next 5 minutes, consume nothing. Put your phone away, close your laptop, turn off the TV, step away from all input, and just be in silence, in stillness, in the unfamiliar space of not taking anything in. Your mind will thank you, not with words, but with relief, the quiet relief of finally being allowed to rest. Reset 2. Reduce input immediately. Silence is medicine for a tired brain, but silence is rare. Most of us live in constant noise, not just sound, but input, visual input, mental input, emotional input, information coming at us from every direction. And our brains are trying to process it all, trying to filter it, trying to decide what's important and what's not, trying to keep up and failing, because the volume of input exceeds our capacity to process it. And that gap between what's coming in and what we can actually handle is exhausting. So the second reset is about reducing input. Immediately, not gradually, not later. Right now. And the fastest way to reduce input is to simplify your environment. Look around you. What are you seeing? Clutter, screens, notifications, mess, movement? All of it is input. All of it is something your brain is processing. Even if you're not consciously aware of it, even if you think you're tuning it out, your brain is still registering it. Still working on it, still using energy to process it. So reduce it, close the tabs, clear the desk, dim the lights, turn off the notifications. Remove the visual noise, and if you can, find a space that's simple, quiet, empty, where your brain doesn't have to process anything, where it can just rest in the absence of stimulation. This might mean closing your eyes. It might mean facing a blank wall. It might mean stepping outside into open space. It might mean sitting in a room with nothing but stillness. Whatever it is, make it simple. Make it quiet. Make it empty, because your brain is tired of processing. And the only way to give it relief is to stop giving it things to process. This is not avoidance. This is not escape. This is necessity. Your brain needs a break from input, from stimulation, from the constant demand to pay attention to everything. And when you give it that break, when you reduce input dramatically, something shifts. The mental fog starts to clear. The heaviness starts to lift. The exhaustion starts to ease. Not because anything changed in your life, but because you stopped overwhelming your brain with input it can't process. You gave it silence, and silence, for a tired brain, is medicine. It's not emptiness. It's relief, it's space. It's the absence of demand. And in that absence, your brain can finally stop working, stop processing, stop trying to keep up. And just be quiet, still, resting, for the first time all day. So reduce input, right now. Make your environment as simple as possible. Remove what you can. Simplify what you can't remove. And give your brain the gift of less. Less to see, less to hear. Less to process, less to manage. Just less. And watch how quickly the exhaustion begins to ease. Not completely, but enough. Enough to breathe, enough to think. Enough to feel like yourself again. Even if just for 5 minutes. Reset 3. Clear mental residue. Unfinished thoughts drain energy. Your mind is not just tired from new input. It's tired from old input. From thoughts you started but never finished, from decisions you began but never made, from problems you identified but never resolved, from conversations you replayed but never processed. All of it is still there, sitting in your mind, taking up space, using energy, not actively but passively. Like programs running in the background of a computer. You're not consciously thinking about them, but they're still there, still draining resources, still creating mental load. This is mental residue, and it accumulates. Every unfinished task, every unresolved worry, every decision you postponed, every feeling you pushed down. It all stays, lingering, creating a constant low-level drain on your mental energy. And the more residue you carry, the more exhausted you feel. Not from doing, but from holding. So the third reset is about clearing mental residue. Not all of it, just some. Just enough to create space. And the way you do that is simple. You acknowledge what's there. You don't have to solve it. You don't have to finish it. You don't have to fix it. You just have to acknowledge it. Name it, recognize that it's taking up space, and then consciously let it go. For now, not forever. Just for the next 5 minutes, so pause. Right now. And ask yourself what's still running in the background? What am I still carrying? What thoughts keep circling back? And when you identify them, when you name them, say this: I see you. I know you're there. But I'm setting you down for now. You can come back later if you need to. But right now I'm letting you go. And then release it, not by forcing it away, but by choosing not to hold it for the next 5 minutes. You're giving yourself permission to stop carrying it. Temporarily, just long enough to rest. And when you do that, when you consciously release the mental residue, you feel lighter. Not completely unburdened, but less heavy, less crowded, less overwhelmed by everything you're holding. Because you're not holding it all right now. You're letting some of it go. And in that release, there's space for your mind to rest, space for your thoughts to settle, space for the exhaustion to ease. Not permanently, but for now. And now is all you need. 5 minutes where you're not carrying everything, where you're not holding every unfinished thought, where you're not managing every piece of mental residue. Just 5 minutes of being lighter. And that lightness, even temporary, is rest. Real rest, the kind your mind has been needing. Reset 4. Let your mind wander safely. Rest is not emptiness, it's freedom. When people think of mental rest, they often think of meditation, of clearing the mind, of emptying all thoughts, of achieving perfect stillness. But that's not rest for most people. That's pressure. Another thing to do, another standard to meet, another way to feel like you're failing. Because your mind doesn't want to be empty. It wants to wander. That's what minds do. They move, they drift, they explore, and forcing them to be still is just more work. So the 4th reset is different. It's not about emptying your mind. It's about letting it wander, safely, without purpose, without direction, without needing to accomplish anything. This is true rest, not the absence of thought, but the freedom to think without pressure, to let your mind go wherever it wants to go, without judgment, without trying to steer it, without worrying about where it ends up. Just wandering. And when you allow that, when you give your mind permission to wander without purpose, it relaxes, because it's not being controlled. It's not being managed. It's not being forced to focus or be productive or make sense. It's just free. And freedom is rest. So for the next 5 minutes, let your mind wander. Don't try to think about anything specific. Don't try to solve anything. Don't try to be productive with your thoughts. Just let them drift. Maybe your mind wanders to a memory. Let it. Maybe it wanders to something random. Let it. Maybe it wanders to a worry. That's okay too. You're not trying to control where it goes. You're just letting it move, without grabbing onto anything, without following any thought too far. Just noticing where it drifts. And letting it drift again. This might feel aimless, like you're wasting time. Like you should be doing something more productive. But you're not wasting time. You're giving your mind what it needs, the freedom to move without demand, to think without purpose, to exist without performance. And in that freedom, your mind rests, not by being empty, but by being unburdened, by not having to accomplish anything, by not having to make sense. By just being allowed to wander, and wander at will. Thoughts will come and go. Images will appear and fade, Feelings will surface and pass. And you don't have to do anything with any of it. You just let it happen. Like watching clouds move across the sky. You don't control them. You don't chase them. You just watch them drift. And your mind is the same, drifting, wandering, free, and in that wandering, it finds rest, the kind of rest that doesn't come from stillness, but from freedom, from not being managed, from not being controlled, from just being allowed to be, without pressure, without purpose, without performance, just wandering, safely, gently, free. Reset 5. Return without pressure. You don't need to come back sharp, just present. After 5 minutes of rest, your mind will start to return to the task, to the day, to whatever you were doing before, and there might be pressure. Pressure to feel better, pressure to be productive, pressure to have clarity, pressure to come back sharp and ready. But that's not how rest works. Rest doesn't make you sharp. It makes you present, and present is enough. You don't need to be brilliant. You don't need to be energized. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to be here. Actually here, not half distracted, not mentally exhausted, not running on fumes. Just present. And that's what these 5 minutes give you. Not peak performance, just presence. The ability to be here in this moment, without your mind being somewhere else. And that's valuable. More valuable than you might think. Because most of the time you're not present. You're thinking about the next thing. Or the last thing. Or the thing you forgot. Or the thing you're worried about. You're anywhere but here, and that divided attention is exhausting. It's why you feel drained even when you're not doing much. Because your mind is in 10 places at once, and none of them is here. So the 5th reset is about returning, not with pressure, not with expectations, but gently, slowly. Without demanding anything from yourself, you're just coming back. To this moment, to this space, to being here, and that's enough. So as you finish these 5 minutes, don't rush. Don't immediately jump back into doing. Don't force yourself to be productive. Just notice that you're here. Notice that your mind feels different. Maybe not completely rested, but different. Lighter, perhaps, quieter, maybe. More spacious. And from that space, you can choose what comes next. Not from exhaustion, not from overwhelm, not from mental fog, but from presence. From being here, from having a little bit of mental space to work with. And that makes everything easier, not easy, but easier, because you're not operating from depletion anymore. You're operating from a place that's just slightly more restored. Just slightly more rested, just slightly more present. And that slight difference matters. It's the difference between pushing through and actually functioning. Between surviving and actually living. Between being somewhere else mentally and actually being here. So return gently. Don't demand sharpness. Don't demand energy. Don't demand clarity. Just be here, present. With whatever capacity you have, and let that be enough. Because it is. Presence is always enough. Even when it's not accompanied by brilliance, even when it's not accompanied by energy, even when it's just you being here in this moment, that's enough. And from here you can continue. Not because you're fixed, not because you're rested completely, but because you're present. And presence is where everything starts. Conclusion. You can reset without escaping life. You don't need to leave your life to rest your mind. This is important to understand, because most people think rest requires escape, a vacation, a retreat, a complete break from everything. And while those things can help, they're not necessary. You can rest your mind right here, right now. In the middle of your regular life, in the middle of your regular day, without changing anything external, just by changing what you do internally. For 5 minutes, that's all. These 5 resets are not about escaping. They're about pausing. About creating a small pocket of rest in the middle of everything else. About giving your mind what it needs without requiring your entire life to stop. Because your life won't stop. The demands will continue. The responsibilities will remain. The noise will persist. But you can still rest in small moments, in brief pauses, in 5-minute resets that give your mind just enough relief to keep going. Not thriving necessarily, but functioning, without depletion, without overwhelm, without the constant mental fog. And the more you practice these resets, the more natural they become, the easier they are to access, the more effective they are. Because you're training your mind to rest, even briefly, even in the middle of chaos, even when everything around you is demanding your attention. You're learning to create space, internal space, mental space, the kind that doesn't require external change, just internal permission. Permission to stop consuming, permission to reduce input, permission to clear mental residue, permission to let your mind wander, permission to return without pressure. These are not complicated practices. They're simple, almost too simple, which is why people often dismiss them. They think this can't possibly help. This is too basic. This won't make a difference. But it does. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's accessible. You can do it anywhere, anytime for just 5 minutes. And those 5 minutes accumulate. They build capacity. They create resilience. They give your mind what it's been desperately needing. Not once, but repeatedly, as often as you need, which might be daily, or multiple times a day, or whenever you notice that mental fog creeping back in, that exhaustion settling in, that sense that your mind is full and can't hold anymore. That's when you reset, not by escaping, not by leaving your life, but by pausing right where you are for 5 minutes and giving your mind what it needs. It's not a solution to everything. It's not going to fix your life. It's not going to remove all stress. But it will give you relief, real relief, the kind that comes from actually resting your mind. Not thinking about resting, not planning to rest, but actually doing it for 5 minutes. That's all, and 5 minutes is enough. To stop consuming, to reduce input, to clear mental residue, to let your mind wander, to return without pressure. 5 minutes is enough to shift from depletion to presence, from overwhelmed to manageable, from mentally exhausted to mentally available. And that shift matters more than you might realize, because presence is where everything happens. Presence is where you can actually think, actually feel, actually connect, actually live. And these 5 resets give you that. Not perfectly, not permanently, but repeatedly, as often as you need them. So use them, not once, but whenever your mind is tired, whenever the mental fog returns, whenever you feel that exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. Reset. for 5 minutes and let your mind actually rest. You don't need to escape your life to do it. You just need to pause and give yourself what you've been needing all along: space, silence, relief. For just 5 minutes, that's enough. Closing moment. Your mind is tired. You know that now. Not in a vague way, but in a real felt way. And you know what it needs. Not more productivity, not more motivation, not more pushing, but rest, real rest, the kind that happens when you stop consuming, when you reduce input, when you clear mental residue, when you let your mind wander, when you return without pressure. 5 minutes, that's all it takes. Not to solve everything, but to give your mind what it's been desperately needing. A break, a real one. So take it now. Or later, or whenever you need it. Your mind will thank you, not with words, but with clarity, with presence, with the quiet relief of finally being allowed to rest, even briefly, even in the middle of everything, even for just 5 minutes. That's enough. You're enough. Your tired mind is not a failure. It's just tired, and tired minds need rest. So rest now.